What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Maurizio from Kataklysm. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We're all really looking forward to the show at St. Vitus this Saturday. I'm actually calling from 10 blocks from that place.
Oh, really awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very.
we're looking forward to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a cool little night. I think it's looking decent, and I think it's a little intimate place that I really enjoy playing. I've played there before, so it'll be a really good evening, and we just want to hang out with our fans and have a good time. I think it's a special thing too. You get to get the CD on the ticket price, so
yeah,
it's a really cool thing.
and
Yeah.
you guys and Jungle Rot on the same bill. That sounds like a brutal pit that's going to open up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We love those boys there. I live in Chicago, so I've been here about 15 years now, and so John Colorado from the area, so we're friends, and it made sense. Let's do a couple of gigs together. So, and they're releasing their record too soon, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, just make sure you have a lot of water on that stage because that place in the summer gets pretty hot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Thanks, buddy.
yeah. But Meditations is scheduled to come out this week. Could you tell me a little bit about like the recording process and how it was making the record?
Yeah. This it wasn't an easy record. I mean, it came out naturally, very organic for us. This album, but it was a more difficult process because all of us live in different cities. So to get together was it's always a bit complicated. We all have families and a bunch of stuff going on. So I got two guys that are in Montreal. I got myself in Chicago, and my guitar player lives in Dallas.
Oh wow.
So in order for us to all get together, it gets more complicated, and so we've been using technology like Skype or other forms of communication to been writing, Dropbox and all kinds of stuff to send each other, riffs and just ideas, and do skeleton type of montage and whatever. But we wanted to go back to how we used to do things, and we got together a bunch of times throughout the year, and in a room, and even in my house in Chicago, in my basement, we kind of got together and started writing shit, and we were like, fuck, this is cool. It's like the old days, and ideas were bouncing off, rapidly. Like, so if I had an idea, usually when you're doing online stuff, it's difficult because, it is what you get, and then by the time you're sending stuff back, it takes a couple of days, and you kind of lose the momentum or the idea on the moment, that you just could get when you're together. So it's been 10 years, I believe it was over 10 years the last time we did a record together. Last one we did like that was, I think, in the era of Serenity and Fire and in the Arms of Devastation. So that was the time that we used to always write records together. So big different leap towards that. It's a very groove-oriented record, but very melodic. It's got a lot of different elements. There's very simple tracks, but there's very complex tracks as well. So it's a very balanced album, very Kataklysm. I mean, it's you don't really change your recipe after 13 records. But
Exactly.
at some point, you know who you are. You're gonna gamble a few things. We gambled on the sound a little bit on this record. Yeah, some of the songs are a bit different. It's very melodic, like I said. If you like an album like Heartwork from Carcass, you're gonna find some stuff like that as far as like melodic death metal. So that's what we aim for, and I think we hit it pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed Kataklysm. I mean, I've seen you guys. You were on 70,000 Tons of Metal this year with like a bunch of different bands, but I've seen you guys play with black metal bands. I know that you were on Summer Slaughter one year. It seems like you have a sound that can cater to any type of heavy music.
Absolutely, and I think it's been our weapon at the same time. At some time, it's been kind of like our nemesis to have that situation happen, like our evil nemesis, because enabled Kataklysm to do a lot of different touring at the same time. We're not a band that's part of a niche. We are very authentic. I think in what we do. It's a hybrid of different ideas. Kataklysm is not just one centered on their like one thing. It's not like New York death metal or Florida death metal. It's been a band that has European influence. It's got American influence. We have created our own hybrid death metal, and I think when people have a hard time pinpointing a band. Sometimes they tend to criticize it, and I think we've been kind of in between that world a little bit, where you're not fucking, extreme enough, or you're too melodic, or you're too this or too that. So, you're right. We've been able to tour with different bands. I mean, Kataklysm could tour with bands like Hatebreed,
yeah,
and then they could come and go out with Cannibal Corpse. That's what I think makes us special, So,
and you're not playing to the same people every show by doing that.
Sorry?
And then you're not going to be playing to the same people every show that you're doing that, so it gives you a chance to like broaden your audience more.
Exactly, and that hence us being here 25 years. If it'd be only one a particular crowd and never take that chance of touring with anybody else, and we'd be gone. Just because times change. So yeah.
It keeps the show exciting. Like the first time I saw you was with Carrick Angren back in Long Island of 2016.
Oh, shit. Cool, yeah.
And now you're going out with Jungle Rod, who's more of like a death metal band. It just seems like it's going to be a different vibe the whole time, but in the end, it's still Kataklysm.
And then we're doing these shows, and it's we always want to move them around. Like we always want to have different bands with us, and I think that makes it interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, being that this is the 13th record by Kataklysm, I mean, you kind of answered it in the recording process, but to get a little more in depth, do you usually go into the studio with a preconceived idea, or is there like improv involved and you kind of let things happen organically?
The improv part, it's if we're listening to something that we are not sure about, and then let's come up with something to fix this area. Then we'll do that. We'll pull the guitars and be like, we need to fix this part because we want it to flow better, or let's just change the dynamics of the song. That happens, and it happens a lot when we're writing. But we do have skeleton, compositions done where we have at least the basics of how the song is going to go. And first, I think we all need that platform first, and then we, it's like a pizza, right? You have the basics, but then if you want to add stuff to it, then you just put on top,
Exactly.
So, we build it to the taste of what we want to do, at that moment. So, that's the way Kataklysm's written most of its career. A lot of bands do it very differently than that. Some songs, like songs like Sin Shadows and Dust for Kataklysm, for example, it's a song that, when we wrote it back in 2002, which became a big Kataklysm hit. It was a song that I came up with a chorus, and I was like, I want to do this, and then all the guitars come in when I say this, and let's try that, and that's how that came about. So we use different elements, but for sure, this record especially, it had a preconceived idea behind it, and then we came in, and then touched it up, touched up all the parts that we needed to.
Okay. I've always thought like a preconceived idea for a record, sometimes it like works great, but I heard sometimes it could also be like disappointing in a way because then you revolve everything around that. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, it depends. I think if you're doing a preconceived idea on the moment, and then the whole record is going that direction, then I think it's a gamble. I think that if you're able to have a preconceived idea on a song, but a week later you're doing something completely different with an idea, well then it's gonna keep it interesting. Every song's gonna have its personality. I think for us it's very important that every song stands out. It's if some people say Kataklysm sounds the same record to record, they're completely off.
Exactly.
Because you can't say that Crippled and Broken is like As I Slid or like Narcissist or like Outsider or like, all these songs stand on their own. They have their own. Obviously, you're going to have some sort of riffing that's going to be kind of similar. That's very possible. We're the same fucking band,
Exactly.
So it's like, you're going to have that. But, because it's like, the trademark. But in the end, we are that band that every song is, conceived in a way where it stands on its own, and so for us, it works. I think, maybe some other bands, that idea of preconceiving a song and having that idea already laid out and then just going with it could look, like you said, it might backfire. So
Okay.
It depends on the band,
Yeah, and being that this is the 13th record by Cataclysm, at this point, do you guys kind of like know what to expect from each other, and like at each time you write a new record, it's kind of like at this point going through the motions, or has every record and the recording process and songwriting process been a completely different experience?
Well, it's a tough call because you know you want to kind of play safe because you want to keep what you have. At
Yeah,
the same time, you feel that you have to evolve, and that's very important for a musician because then if you're only going through the motions, people get that. Like, we're still gambling with our career. I mean, like the producer we use on this record is not a metal guy. Like he's a metal guy, but he's not the typical guy that everybody uses. Like, it's not like an Andy Sneap or Colin Richardson or Mark Lewis or whoever. This is like a guy that works with Stone Sour, Anthrax, and doesn't do death metal. So for us, it was a gamble, but we heard his work, and he had big drum sounds, big guitar sounds, and everything was clean, and you could hear everything. And I was like, if we can take a chance with this guy, bring him in, and he delivers, we're gonna have a great sounding record, like something different than everybody else. And so that's a big gamble for somebody that's got 13 records.
yeah,
And we're on an upswing right now, and we're Ghosts and Gods. Our last record was done by Andy Sneap, and it sounds great, and it's a big album for Cataclysm. And coming off that, we were like, we still need to change. We still need to keep it interesting, because and obviously you're gonna have the fans like, oh, it doesn't sound like the last one, or doesn't sound like your 13 last records or whatever. And it's like, but we need to be always a step ahead. We're that band that we'll take that different route. Like the last record, we had 10 videos. We did one video per song.
oh wow,
Right, and then Metallica came with the same idea 2 years later. Like a year and a half. So it's like we came out with different ideas that nobody's doing. And I think that we did this again on this record. So there's always a constant change with Cataclysm, a little bit, but it's always going to be the root idea will remain the same because that's how we are.
of course. Well, it's cool because while I could tell that each song stands out on their own, like you said, there is also there are elements that kind of tie everything together. It's not like, you're making a death metal record and then the next minute you're making a shoegaze record, you know what I mean?
Right, absolutely, yeah, for sure. You're not gonna catch me singing super clean in a song and talking about love. Not gonna gonna happen.
Well, maybe that's a challenge you could take for the next record.
Right.
Now, you mentioned that the producer that you worked with, he didn't, he worked with bands like Stone Sour and like more of a, I guess, hard rock sort of sound to it. So, in addition,
like even Steel Panther, so it's like you're like, oh shit, they used a guy that did Steel Panther, but then you listen to the record, and it's heavy, it's brutal, it's to the point, but it has one element, that I love. It's sharp, and by being sharp, it's bringing it closer to like a Far Beyond Driven from Pantera, which we use the same guy that mixed that album.
wow.
So Cataclysm has this thing where it's very street oriented. It's very social based. We're not singing about killing babies and torturing kinds of stuff and Satan or whatever. We're it's not for us. We're very social based and a poetic version of that, and we leave it open for interpretation. But we need to have that sound that goes with that.
Of course.
So it can't. You know what I mean? So it's like it's very kind of dirty. The same. It's clean. You hear everything. And Jay Rustin is his name. He produced the record, and I think that when he first heard it, was like, holy fuck, this is heavy for me. And I was like, yeah, good. That's why you're going to do it.
well, yeah, you kind of like answered my question because...
your resume, like,
well, you answered my question because like I was curious because you said that it was a gamble for you guys, but do you think that maybe it was also a gamble for him? It seemed like you both were entering new territory at the same time.
Absolutely. So, and this is how it happened. We got connected through the label, and we were looking for a producer, and we said, let's try somebody new, and he was the guy we wanted, and we connected with him. He's in LA, but he's from Canada.
Oh wow!
So we didn't know that, and then he was like, I always wanted to do Kataklysm. I wanted to do a Canadian metal band, and never have. And I want to do you guys, for sure. I'm taking the project, but I think I know he heard the band before, but he didn't expect it maybe to be as heavy, and it was like fucking holy shit, it's like it starts and it's fast, and so for him, it was a challenge. This album took a month to mix. Usually you're looking 10 days to 2 weeks to mix a record.
Wow.
With any producer. He took a month. He was like, okay, what do you think of this? And he doesn't work with triggers, so that was a big challenge for him as well. Like we because in death metal, if at that speed, you can't go organic. It's gonna sound like a big blur. Well, like the old Napalm records, they're great, but it's like you really don't hear much of what's going on. So you kind of have to have them. But he mixed it organically, like with real sounds. So that makes it even bigger, in my opinion. It's like there's nothing computerized on this record. So it's a big challenge to be able to pull it off, and we're happy. It came out cool.
Yeah, I'm really. It's a breath of fresh air to say that it's finally something that isn't done with computers.
Exactly. Yeah, like the old isn't. But some people look at this. This is what freaked us out. We released our first single, Guillotine, came out.
Yep.
Reaction was badass. But then people like, oh, they're using a drum machine. I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Like, it's like they were criticizing that it was so sharp and precise, and that the sound was so good that they can't say the difference between computerized and organic anymore.
Oh.
To me, that was wow. That's how advanced the technologies come. You have all these bands now, shitloads of bands that are new. These young kids that are coming out, and they can't even play what they're recording.
Yeah.
Live. They just can't do it. And it's like a big blur. Some of them are using their own samplers from the record on a backing tracks and they're not doing anything. There's guitar tracks. There's everything. There's like Milli Vanilli in death metal. There's shitloads of that happening right now. It's crazy. To me, it's like we're replacing the human factor, and that to me is unacceptable for music.
Yeah, I think Fear Factory was the first band to call it out, that whole man versus machine concept, and I think now their records are making sense.
Right. There's one thing though about Fear Factory. They never hid from it. They never hid from the fact that that's how it is, and they had this futuristic, advanced type of mentality. Their lyrics were about it, cyber stuff and everything. So I think their concept works for what they did. But, you got all these guttural death metal bands that are coming out, and, it's like typewriter, computer, everything is like precise and done perfectly, and then they go live, they can't do it. So now they start using their computerized files, and they bring it on the stage, and they're like not even playing. Their amps are off. There's bands like that. I can't mention names, but it's like happening. So it's. I think that's sad. I mean, I'm going down playing live organically. Even if we fuck up, it's gonna be like that.
If you fuck up, it's almost kind of like a good thing, because it's an organic, like natural thing that you could share with the audience.
For sure.
As long as you don't do it too much. Mm-hmm. But
I like seeing Phil Anselmo fall off a stage, and he was all fucking lit up on stage, and just like. They talked about it, and the band, I mean, not all the time, you pay a show, you want to have a show, but sometimes it's cool when, things happen that are not going to be like fucking exactly like the record, It's kind of cool sometimes to have that human factor. That's all I'm saying,
Absolutely. Now, I have 2 more questions I'd like to ask, because you mentioned that you're very poetic behind your music and everything. Do you have to... Does music have to be made first before a concept is made behind the record, or does sometimes you or one of the other guys come up with a concept and write according to that?
I think that it's important to have music before I write lyrics, because I want to know what the feeling of where it's going. That's very important, because the concept of a record, we're gonna have the idea. We're going to throw in, I'm going to be like, okay, I want to talk more about this, or it's going to be more like this. And the guys are going to be like, well, how do you want to, what's the feel? Do you want it really aggressive, or you want to be more ambient, or more cut vein type of melodic drama type of music. So we kind of bounced the idea back and forth a little bit in the beginning. But we kind of go with the flow. You know what I mean? Like they'll send riffs and ideas, or we'll be here like the last record together, and then we're coming into a vibe, and I'm like, okay, this song would be more about this because that what reflects the music. You know, I kind of like to go with the music before I write all of my lyrics. You know.
Of course. And which is great. I get a different answer for it every time. That like sometimes they don't even pick up a single instrument until they could think of a story. Like I know that Mastodon is very concept driven. But then I know that with a band like Harm's Way, for example, who we interviewed, like lyrics are like the most absolute last thing that's even touched. So it's really interesting how it goes both ways.
Some bands are more musical. Kataklysm is very important lyric type of band where people relate a lot. You know, we got a song that we're going to release on Friday. It's going to be the last single that we're releasing. I'm not sure if it's going to be the last single, but it's going to be the one that's getting released with the album.
Okay.
The video, it's Outsider, and that song, it's a rallying cry, type of song for people that are a bit like us. You know, like I told you before, we don't belong to any organization or clique or any political views or anything. You know, we're that band that's just there and doing our thing. We're in the middle, you know what I mean? And I think the majority is there. And I think we're that type of band that like wants to make it all about music again. And that song represents people that are like that are just, different. But in the same thing, we all want to get along and doing the same thing, you just enjoy music for what it is. And so that song's coming out on Friday. The video for it's badass, and we filmed it in LA and in a really cool area, and you'll see. It's all part of that thing, So the lyrics are very important for Kataklysm because people relate to it a lot. We've had people come to us show, like, dude, you saved my life. I was in a bad spot, and this song you wrote, Manipulator of Souls, got me off heroin. I was like, holy fuck,
Yeah.
So if you're able to reach people and do something good with it, and to me, it's totally worth everything. So we're very, very lyric-oriented band. But again, I have to have the feel of the music. I can't write something that's dark and then the music is like yuppie, something. So,
another challenge you could take on the next record.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But I'd imagine that gets pressuring, though, when somebody tells you, oh, your music really helped me through hard times. Are you ever, like, afraid if you take another risk that you might let that fan down or something like that?
You never know. At some point, you have to understand also how people think and the way you are brought up, and I see myself as, when I was growing up listening to metal, there's certain records that just hit me hard, and I grew up with them, and I don't think that band, it doesn't matter if they did better records afterwards. To me, it's going to be that album that in my life at that point changed me and hit me, So I think Kataklysm is the same. There's records we've done that people, are going to hang on to forever, and nothing we're going to do is ever going to be better, And there's some people that are going to come out and hear Meditations and, dude, I feel just like Outsider, or I feel like, my girlfriend used to be a narcissist, like whatever, it's going to hit, and then that's going to be your album, and I think that's the beauty about music. And bands can't take personal when people say, hey, I love this album, I don't like the new one, because that's the album that hit them,
Okay.
So yeah. I think that's the way I see it anyways,
Absolutely. And the final question I want to ask is, before we go, and I want to thank you so much for your time, giving me the call. But one question I wanted to have is, I know that you live in Chicago now, and the other members live in the States, but you guys originally formed in Montreal, right?
Yeah, all of us, yeah.
Yep. Now, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of bands from Canada. One of my favorite bands is from there, actually. But the home of Devin Townsend and Threat Signal and Anvil and the Agonists and so many bands all over there. And I hear about a different festival in Montreal like every week happening. It just seems like a weekly event there. Was it kind of easy getting involved in the Canadian metal scene out there?
Well, this is a place where so many bands came out of, and at the same time, it's a place where there's a huge metal following with fans, real fans. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. If you go to Sweden, you're playing to band members. There is not a lot of big death metal like base that are coming to shows and like all they do is listen to metal, drink beer, having a good time. They're in a band, you know. So it's like, you know, you're there, you're playing to the guys in Dismember, Entombed, or whatever, you know, and all the death metal guys that come out, and it's cool, but it's not the same as Montreal, for example. Montreal is like total 100% metal dedication, you know. So yeah, there's a big movement out there. There always has been, and we came up in a time where there was a lot of competition between bands, and it was a great scene, you know. I'm not sure how it is now at this moment because I don't live there anymore, but I know it's changed a lot, but this still has this heart, you know, for metal, and there's always something going on, you know. Now that we have Rock Fest up there, we have Heavy MTL, which is super cool, and, you know, a lot of big open airs, and now we have, you know, like you said, festivals every weekend or something like that. You know, look, you just look at the metal scene. It's very diversified, like you were mentioning before, from Devin Townsend to Anvil to Cryptopsy to Gorguts to Kataklysm. Like, we all have our own identity, and I think, you know, you can't forget a band like Voivod either. So it's like we all have our own personalities. I think that makes you know, Canada very special for metal, you know.
Absolutely. And it's like, as you mentioned, it's diverse. You know, people think of the Tampa death metal scene, and while it's good, it's all Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, and Deicide. You go to New York, it's all hardcore. You go to California, it's all thrash. You know what I mean? So it's cool how in Canada it's very diversified.
Yep, and it remains.
Yep, exactly. Well, Maurizio, I want to thank you so much for your time coming here. We're all looking forward to the show at St. Vitus this Saturday.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it too. So I guess we'll see you there.
Yep, I'll see you there. Everybody, this is Alex from Heavy New York on the phone with Maurizio from Kataklysm. Be sure to pick up their newest record, Meditations. It is absolutely awesome. And check out the singles already and catch them on their tour very soon. Thanks again, Maurizio.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Cheers.